STEM fans, are you ready? Let's hear it for the world-class NASA STEM Stars team. From NASA centers across the country, Becky Bolt.
Hello, welcome to our third NASA STEM Stars. I am your host today, Lynn Dotson, and I'm here today with Becky Bolt, a wildlife ecologist at Kennedy Space Center. We're so excited that you're here with us, and we want to make sure you guys all know we're doing these STEM Stars, allowing students to connect firsthand with scientists, engineers, innovators from around NASA to learn about different career paths, opportunities, and missions. Check out hashtag NASA Gen STEM. So for our mission today, should you choose it, we have a lot of things to get through, and we are going to introduce Becky, and then we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of questions for her, and then you guys are going to get a chance to actually ask your questions. You're going to learn about her mission and the mission of Kennedy Space Center and the Merritt Island Refuge, and then next we'll talk about what's on the next the next NASA STEM Stars. So without further ado, I would like you to understand that you want to make sure you stick around. Your questions are going to be answered by Becky, and so if you can, make sure you chat in the box. Ask her all kinds of questions that relate to her career and other questions about Kennedy Space Center and the Merritt Island Refuge. And just stick around also because I've heard there's a special wildlife guest that will be joining us. And so while we're moving forward, I'd like to go ahead and do a virtual tour of Kennedy Space Center, where NASA meets technology.
Now this is a remarkable place to me because you have on one side over here modern science. This is the new world. And that is primitive the way it was thousands of years ago. This has not been touched.
Well, indeed, it is old Florida, and it's old Florida preserved, which is unique. It's an exceptional place.
It is just awesome to be able to come over the bridge at sunrise onto Merritt Island and into this refuge. And the greenery, the flora and fauna, the wildlife, it's spectacular.
On a narrow stretch of Barrier Island along Florida's eastern shore is an oasis. Here at the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge, marshes and scrubland are broken only by towering launch structures, and birds share the skies with rockets.
2, 1, and liftoff of the Atlas V.
Bordered by the Atlantic Ocean to the east and the Indian River Lagoon to the west, the refuge shares boundaries with NASA's Kennedy Space Center. To the north lies the unspoiled beauty of the Canaveral National Seashore. Within these borders, a variety of natural habitats provide sanctuary to more than 500 animal species, including 14 that are considered endangered or threatened. The stories of the Wildlife Refuge and the space program have been inseparably linked since the refuge was established in 1963 to manage the lands surrounding the launch complex. Today, these 140,000 acres at the northern end of Merritt Island provide a safe haven for hundreds of species of wildlife and offer visitors a trip back in time to old Florida.
It's an excellent place to work, I know for sure. So I'm going to introduce Becky Bolt again. She is a wildlife ecologist, and we're so excited to have you here. If you would, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you like to do, your interests, your hobbies?
Oh, thank you, Lynn. I really appreciate NASA STEM Stars inviting me to do this. It's exciting, and I hope there's lots of people out there watching. Besides my job, which I love, I have a lot of things that I do, a lot of interests. I have a fairly large family. My husband and I each have 2 daughters, and they have families, and I have 8 grandkids with 2 more on the way, so I spend a lot of time doing that. Besides my family things, I'm really involved in my spiritual community, the People of Diversity. It's an interfaith community where I learn lots about all kinds of different religions. I like to spend time doing things with wildlife in my fun life too. Besides work, I enjoy bird watching and taking pictures, photographing birds. And I'm currently writing a book for kids. It's going to be a life list for kids when they first start out birding, for them to keep track of the birds that they see during their lives. So that's what I enjoy doing. That's a few of the things.
That's awesome. It sounds like a really fun hobby you have, especially writing a book thing. I'm excited about that. So how did you get where you are today? Like, what was your career path, and how have you become this awesome wildlife ecologist at Kennedy Space Center?
Well, I started out, from the time I was born, I was outside. I grew up in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, which is right outside the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. My parents were very good about taking us into the park and hiking and going and camping. And I was in Girl Scouts from the time I was in 2nd grade until I graduated from high school. So we had 21 acres in Gatlinburg where we had horses, and I grew up outside around wildlife all the time, and was taught to have a great respect for that. I went to college at a couple of different places in Tennessee, but I ended up in Orlando at the University of Central Florida. Got my bachelor's degree in biological sciences, and when I graduated, that was 1981, and when I graduated, there weren't really any jobs for biologists at that time. So I decided to stay and get my master's degree, and got that in 1986, worked on fish, and haven't worked on fish since. But I was lucky enough to get an interview with a company that was out at the Space Center, and they hired me. They hired me as a temporary employee, but things worked out over the years, and I've been working on the Space Center for 33 years now. So it's an awesome job. I love it.
And I'm sure every day is different, that's for sure. So what does a wildlife ecologist do at NASA Kennedy?
There's actually quite a group of us, the ecological program, and other people in that program do different things. But what I do is I do a lot of monitoring and research. We have to keep track of, NASA's responsible for what they do to that land. Anything that impacts habitats or wildlife, they are responsible to keep track of that and do the least amount of damage, if you want to look at it that way. And they're very, very, very proud of that responsibility and take it very seriously. So I do a lot of wildlife monitoring, research studies, anything that happens on the Space Center. Like people think about launches, but they don't think about the fact that the Space Center is a city, basically. It's large, there's lots of people that work there, there's traffic, there's buildings that have to go up, there's buildings that have to come down. That second picture with the traffic cone is a perfect example of things that happen every day. We have, that's a gopher tortoise hole. Gopher tortoises aren't particularly intelligent, and it built its burrow right underneath the road. So when that happens, sooner or later, that asphalt is probably going to collapse, which becomes a problem. So in that case, I would go out and I scope the burrow. If the tortoise is in there, then I have to get it out and move it someplace safe, not far, right near there, but safe, out of the road, into another burrow, and then they can fix the road. So that's operations stuff that I do every day. I do a lot of education things, just like doing this STEM Stars thing. I do give talks. I participate in festivals. I like to spread the word and the appreciation that I have for wildlife and for the Space Center and the things that we have here. And then the biggest thing that I've been spending a lot of time on and it's been 10 years now, we have been building dunes on the Space Center. Because of sea level rise, we're losing a lot of our shoreline. And the worst spot of the erosion is right near, it's less than a mile away from the launch pads, from Launch Complex 39, where we used to launch the shuttles and where SpaceX is launching from now, and where NASA is going to not launch their SLS rockets. So we have been creating dunes, building dunes to hold the ocean back, or at least slow it down. We're not under the impression that we're going to keep it from coming, but we're slowing it down so that we can have those launch pads functional for a few more years, hopefully a few more decades. So.
I was looking at that picture and I saw a lot of dune plants. So they say when we go here to the beaches, you got to stay off the dunes. It's really important. We don't want to disrupt those plants because they do hold that soil. And
absolutely.
So yeah. What other things, like what is work life in general? Like, do you out in the field every day? Do you do other things? What kind of day is it? I mean, I know you said it's different every day, but give us a typical,
right.
I guess not so typical day.
It is different every day, and I have always said that if I put my mind to it and I want to, I can learn something new every day. Even after being there for 33 years, I can still learn something new every single day. I get to do lots of really cool, fun things. Some of those pictures show it. I ride in the helicopters. We do helicopter surveys. I love that. Not good if you're afraid of heights, but luckily I'm not. That eagle picture of me holding the eagle, we had a nest tree went down one time in a bad storm, and we rescued the eagles. And long story short, she ended up at San Antonio SeaWorld as an education bird because she had gotten injured. But do a lot of radio tracking even at night out on the dunes. Just a lot of fun, exciting things. And people always say, oh, I wish I had your job. But I also, you can see me sitting there at the computer. When you collect all that data, you have to do something with it. And so the data have to be analyzed. I write a lot of reports. I do a lot of scientific writing where we publish. A lot of our work goes into scientific journals so it can be shared with the world, basically. And for example, we have the world's largest database on eastern indigo snakes, which is a federally listed species. So we've written manuscripts on those. I just had one published last year on the dune work that we do. So I spend a lot of time in my office at my desk. You can see right there, I don't look that happy about it, but it's not bad. I love to write. I do love to write. And the cool thing is all of that's going on, and it amazes me every day that we launch rockets. We launch rockets from there. And there's never, if I'm in town and there's a rocket launch, I go outside. Even if I'm at home and I can't go out to the Space Center, I go outside and I watch, because it's just an amazing thing to think about man's greatest technological achievement and all of that wildlife, all of that habitat and that beauty and the things that we're preserving. If it weren't for NASA owning that property, that place would look like Florida north and south of us, where it's very developed, and we wouldn't have what we have. It's a treasure. It's really a treasure.
Absolutely. I mean, your job just sounds amazing. My background is biology and environmental science, so it's just, I've always held you on a pedestal just because you're just, so thank you so much. So I think what we're going to do now that we've kind of gone through, your path and what you do at Kennedy Space Center, I think we're going to open up the chat window for anyone to submit your questions. All you have to do is submit a question, make sure it has to do with something like her career, her work life, life at NASA. So we would love to hear from you guys. We know there's a lot of students tuning in today, and also teachers. So happy Teacher Appreciation Week. We do appreciate you guys. We wouldn't be where we are today without our teachers. So it looks like I have already a few questions coming in. Let's see. Do all of the space centers have wildlife ecologists? Very good question.
Do all of the space centers have wildlife? Yeah. I haven't been to all of the space centers. I know that we have the largest natural area, but that several of the other space centers also have, green spaces and wildlife. Some of them actually have listed species that are there. I know Wallops, which is north of us, is an island, and so they have a lot of habitat and wildlife there, and they're facing serious issues with sea level rise as well. So yes, all of the centers have some sort of an environmental ecological program to study and take care of the wildlife that they have.
That's a great question. So there's probably wildlife ecologists there too, if there's wildlife. What advice would you have for students who are trying to decide what they want to do or where they want to go to college? How, especially if they want to go into a STEM career like yours.
Right. I love that question because that's something that I've thought a lot. When I think about how I got to where I am, there's a couple of things that I did that I think made a huge difference. And they might not necessarily be things that you would think about. Obviously, you need to study, right? Okay. Even this stuff, I hate math, I really do, but you got to get through it. But a couple of the things that I did that I think really got me where I am as far, especially with my job, is volunteer. If you have an opportunity to do something, somebody asks you to help them with a project, or a teacher asks you to do something, or another student, or go ahead and do it. Even if you're not going to get paid, go ahead and do it. I volunteered for 2 or 3 years doing sea turtle work, and it was hard, and it was all night long, and I was still in school, but it made all the difference. You get experience, you get a reputation for being the kind of person that's willing to help and willing to put yourself out there. People appreciate that, and employers appreciate that when they're looking for somebody. Professors appreciate that when they're looking for students to work for them. So I would say volunteer. Never pass up an opportunity to do something new. Even if you think you're not going to like it, try it, because you never know. Jump on it. Always say yes. You can. If you try something and you decide it's not for you, that's okay. You can get out of it sooner or later, but always say yes and try new things. And that's a couple of the things I would say really made a difference for me.
Excellent advice. The next one actually leads me to, we said that you might have a little bit of a wild animal with you that you might want to show everybody. Yeah. Actually, the question is, have you ever been bitten by a wild animal, a snake, an eagle, a tortoise? Has that ever happened?
Yes. People always think the worst thing that can possibly happen to you is to be bitten by a snake. And as long as it's not a venomous snake, it's not that bad, really. It hurts, but lots of things hurt. I've stubbed my toe on a table or a chair and had it hurt worse than a snake bite. But yeah, I don't suggest that you go around trying to get bitten, but if it happens, it happens. I actually had a gopher tortoise bite me last week, and I have never in my life I've held probably thousands of gopher tortoises and never had one actually bite me, and this one did. I kind of deserved it, but that's all right. This is Glory. Oh, where'd she go? There you are. This is Glory. She is, I hatched her. I had her mom, and she laid eggs, and I kept one of the kids. She's my education animal. She's a red rat snake or a corn snake. I've had her about 20 or 21 years. They don't typically live that long in the wild, but she's very spoiled. She gets food. She eats mice. That's why they call them rat snakes. And there's no predators to get her. So I'm hearing a little feedback. I take her to all kinds of festivals and things like that, to people. She's been held by hundreds and hundreds of people. And her job is to show people that snakes are not something that you need to be afraid of. You should be respectful of them. If you mess with them, you might get bitten. They're only trying to protect themselves. They are not out there looking to bite you. They don't chase you and things. So I just hope that of all the people that have held her, that not so many of them will go after a snake in their yard with a shovel just because it's a snake. So.
Right. I mean, every animal has a place, and that's what I've been trying to teach my daughter that. As a Girl Scout, I remember back in the day, if you ate it or if you killed it, you had to eat it. So that was a big thing with Girl Scouts.
Right.
Never to eat, or never to kill a spider, never to kill anything that, well, I guess mosquitoes are okay to kill, but still, they all have a place, so that's really cool.
That's right.
There's some question about, the eagle nest. How many eagles nests are out there at Kennedy, and tell us a little bit about that.
That's one of my favorite jobs, is we do aerial surveys for the eagle nests. And we've been doing that since 2003, 2004 season. And our number of nests is climbing, which is great. There were some years that we only had 8 or 9 nests. And I believe last year, or this year that we're in right now, I didn't get to finish all of the surveys, but I think we had 22 active nests. And so most nests have 1 or 2 eaglets. So somewhere we put out somewhere in the 30 something number of chicks this year, which is amazing. It's a really, really good place for eagles, and we're helping that population stay stable.
Remember, keep asking questions in the chat box if you have them. I have a few more questions here. You guys are doing great out there. Thank you. What's the best piece of advice you've gotten from a mentor?
Lynn, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said. Can you repeat it?
Okay. Yeah. What is the best piece of advice you've gotten from a mentor?
From a mentor, the best piece of advice, probably the thing I just told you all about volunteering and stuff. I don't know if this would be advice, but something that my major professor told me many, many, many years ago, but it changed my life. And it wasn't about going out in the field and doing that kind of work, because I had that's in me. Being a wildlife person is in me. It always has been. I knew since I was a little kid, that's what I wanted to do, something like that. But he told me I could write, and that changed everything. He told me, and because I didn't really think about that. And his name's Buck Snelson, and he was my major professor at University of Central Florida. And when he told me that, it opened up a whole new world for me. Not only was that important from a scientist view, because like I said, once you have all these data and things, you've got to get them out and share them, or it's not worth collecting. But also, not just from that viewpoint, but also as a creative writer, which I really enjoy, and is another good way to share things with people that aren't necessarily scientists. So I would say, I don't know if that's advice, but that was something that somebody said to me. And another lesson I got from that was, when you feel something like that for somebody and you want to tell them, it's good to say nice things or good things that you really believe to people, because you don't know how it's going to impact them.
I know there's so many mentors I want to thank, and I know a lot of teachers out there are listening in, so many
Right.
teachers are great mentors to us. So another question, what's your favorite, most exciting animal rescue? Have you ever had to do one that was
An animal rescue. I get called a lot to get snakes, out of pits and out of people's things like that. I do a lot of that, and that's fun. But I have to say that rescuing that eagle, when that nest went down, there were several of us, some of the Fish and Wildlife people from Merritt Island, and some of the people I work with. We went out. There were two eaglets. One of them was okay and was released a couple of days later. But rescuing them, going out and finding them, even though that eagle looked so big in that picture, it was still a good 3 weeks before those birds could fly. So they were just basically, no pun intended, sitting ducks. For predators, we have a lot of bobcats out there, coyotes, and they were just really, they wouldn't have lasted very long, most likely. So we rescued them, and since that bird has been in San Antonio, she has been seen by probably thousands of people as an education animal. They have a very active education program at that San Antonio SeaWorld. And I've been out there a couple of times to see her, which is cool. And the people there love her and take great care of her. So that was just an amazing success story. When her brother was released, we put him in a nest box up in a tree. We had a professional climber come, and he built a nest box and put it up in a tree. And that nest box has been active every year since then. This is probably the 5th or 6th year that nest box, the adults have built a nest or fixed the nest that was already there and raised kids. So it's just a good story all the way around.
Someone had mentioned, you had already mentioned you were thinking about writing a children's book. So are you in the process of doing it? How far along are you? I
am writing it. It is probably 3/4 of the way done. it's if you're a birder, a person that likes to just go out and see birds, bird people keep a life list, and they check off every bird that they ever see in that list. Well, I was trying to find one to give my granddaughter, and I couldn't find one. There wasn't one for a kid. So that's what I'm putting together. It's going to have 19 birds in it. And right now I'm working on the maps. It's probably 3/4 of the way done. I hope to have it done by the end of the year, if not before that. So I do that in my spare time, which I don't have a lot of, but it's something that I'm really excited about, and I enjoy doing. I really enjoy it. So
very cool. I wish you luck with that. We can't wait to see it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think at this point, there's one more about role models, but I know you had mentioned, do you have any other role models besides the guy, Indian schooling, and someone that influenced you teacher-wise? Maybe you have a shout out for, or somebody like that.
Let me think. Where I went to high school, they weren't real big on science and math and that sort of stuff. So it wouldn't have been then. Probably just other ones of my college professors, my ecology teacher, my ornithology teacher. They really, before I went to college at UCF, I was, like I said, I went to a couple of places in Tennessee, but I was majoring in, I was a pre-vet for a while. I didn't like that. I was animal science. I can build a really cool chicken coop, but that wasn't what I wanted to do, right? But when I got to UCF, my professors there introduced me to natural resources, wildlife, habitats, the whole ecology thing. And so all of those teachers, Lou Earhart is a sea turtle person, and he let me come and work for him for, a few summers. I worked for him for nothing because they didn't have money to pay. But when they did start paying interns and stuff, he made sure that I got to be, at least get a little bit of money for that to help with my school and stuff. So he was definitely a big influence in my life. So I think my teachers, several of my teachers would be my mentors and people that took me under their wing and helped me find, finally, after all those years, what it was I wanted to do.
Yeah, not everybody knows. I know I had many paths, and I never thought I would work where I'm working, and it's pretty cool when you work at such a cool place like we do. So I want to kind of wrap it up and give everyone a little bit of a homework assignment. So we're going to show you that what we're expecting from you guys by your mission, if you choose to do this, is we want you to visit the NASA at Home website, and we're going to put it in the chat box. The one, it just was released. It was called NEMO, NASA NEMO Net app. And it's actually a cool way to help scientists out mapping coral. So coral in the ocean, yeah, it's not land, but it's ocean ecology. So we want you to try to do that. It's kind of like a fun game. The other thing we want you to do is I'm going to have Becky give you this assignment. I thought it was an amazing assignment that I would want to do with my daughter myself.
I would suggest, and actually I'm going to challenge you to pay attention this week. Look around outside. Even if and maybe there's some of this inside, bugs or anything, birds, plants, whatever interests you, and even if you think it doesn't interest you, just keep a journal for this week. Look around and see what you see, write it down. Notice the colors, notice how large they are, notice interactions between things in nature. Because I think a lot of us, I know this is true for a lot of adults, so it's probably true for the kids too. A lot of us jump in our cars in the morning and we drive to work, and we get to work and we go into our office and we leave and we go home, and we don't look around and notice what's around us. And oh my gosh, even if you don't work out on the Space Center, even just here around my house, I see so many cool things. I have a bird feeder, and I just see so many neat birds, and I look at the spiders. I'm teaching my grandkids to look at things and notice them and appreciate it, because it will bring you so much joy. And you'll go, by the end of the week, if you do this and you take it seriously, by the end of the week, you'll look at that list of things in your journal and you'll go, wow, this is amazing. Look what I've been missing out on. So that's my challenge. I hope that you can do that and enjoy it.
I love that challenge. I'm going to do it with my daughter this week. I mean, I think that just being home, we are out and about and we're all noticing a lot more. So nature is fascinating. I'm so excited that you were able to join us today. I want to challenge everybody also, next time we get together, it's going to be May 21st. So that is the next NASA STEM Stars. And it's going to be with the virtual reality training lab. So very exciting stuff, that it will be on May 21st at 3 o'clock. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Happy Teacher Appreciation. Thank you so much, Becky. And everybody have an excellent Tuesday.
Thank you. Bye.